The piece of music you are about to hear is centuries old and has been re-recorded with state-of-the-art technology in order for you to hear what it might have sounded like at the moment it was first created.
We wish you a merry...
That's it? That's all we can play? Okay. I am serious though. We Wish You a Merry Christmas is over 500 years old. While we're at it, Silent Night is almost 200. So is Joy to the World, The First Noel, and Deck the Halls is over 200 years old. And as every retail worker in America could probably tell you, well, not me obviously, I wouldn't know anything about that, there are over 270 covers, 270 iterations of Jingle Bells alone. And they have heard every single one of them in the past 30 days. So the cultural identity of a piece of music has changed over the years with its coverage. The tone of it will change, the general sound, and even some lyrics for a timely update in the story. But this is a fairly standard thing to bring up, I think. If you've never discussed art at length or at all, I am still confident that you have, at one point in your life, made a trip to your local mall at the end of the year, walked around for less than an hour, and went, was that fucking Jingle Bells again? Who even is this group doing Jingle Bells? Song's almost over, there's not even a single Jingle Bell in the song. How many fucking Jingle Bells are? Oh, that's a good one. That's a good cover of Jingle Bells. And that's why it's my jumping off point for today's topic. It's one of the oldest examples of something that, while also done in film, cannot have been done before the year 1888 and therefore would have less time to produce the offshoot works that the topic demands. I want to suggest that we have been looking at remakes wrong.
Song covers are not remakes.
Just
Miss me.
In 1896, Louis Lumière released a short film entitled Partie de Cartes. In the film, two men play cards while a third spectates. A waiter brings wine, and the third man pours it as the waiter now looks on the game. That's it. The depth of Partie de Cartes is obvious, and was especially so to Georges Méliès, who must have found so much potential in its thematic and structural depth that he made it again, the same year. In his version, entitled Playing Cards, the third man reads a newspaper and smokes. He calls over a girl, who calls a woman to bring them the wine. After they drink, the man reads from the paper, and the card players laugh. That's it. I joked about depth a second ago, but in truth, this is a big moment in cinema history. One that echoes over a century in time and permeates much of the industry and even artistic landscape in and around Hollywood. You see, Georges Méliès' Playing Cards was the first movie remake ever remade. Films would see a revisitation, sometimes years apart, sometimes decades, and some films would be remade more than one time. Due to the confusing nature of franchise filmmaking, the terminology has become more and more muddled. You have your sequel, prequel, and remake, but then you have your reboot, your reimagining, your legacy sequel, your spin-off, your retcon, your multiversal canonizing of... what the fuck? This is a remake of that, right? No, it's just a different adaptation of the same source material. Our pop perspective on the movie remake is fairly rigid and often obsesses over the narrative of the original as its primary target for recreation. You know what would look better in today's times? Dream sequences, dance sequences, love sequences. They remade a sex scene. They remake sex scenes. Movies are hysterical. Meanwhile, remakes can often be as fluidly defined as the materials they're drawing from, all based on the target of the filmmakers who aim to revisit the work. Most will rip from an old narrative, but many of them do forget one key part of a film that they could also rip from. A part that more or less defines the soul of a film. You have 3 seconds to guess what I'm about to say. I'm kidding. Thematic remakes are everywhere, and they're obviously hard to define if we go about this in broad terms. So I'm going to talk about the form of thematic remake I find to be the most valuable, and that would be when an artist remakes their own work. Oh wow, am I about to talk about me and my own work again? Who would have guessed that I'm gonna be... In order to thematically remake one's film, I'm of the opinion that a filmmaker does not have to intend to remake their own film. The idea is truly all that has to carry over, and through either obsession, or inadequacy, or just lack of catharsis, the idea will continue to find its way into the artist's body of work as a whole. Thematically, at times, one could follow a through line of a filmmaker's films and occasionally find that it's riddled with one topic or interest in particular. Fellini's film Roma is a remake of his film 8 1/2. Will anybody get mad at me for that one? Probably. I don't know. Is there anybody to get mad at me at that one? Bruce Almighty is a remake of Liar Liar. Killers of the Flower Moon is a thematic... Chef is a remake of Iron Man 2. But I want to talk about Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which I'm sure many of you have seen or at the very least know about, and for those of you that don't, it's pretty easy to just kind of recap quickly. So, A Nightmare on Elm Street was Wes Craven's most iconic film, releasing in 1984 and spawning 5 sequels until 1991, only one of which Wes Craven had even a small hand in. He's gone on record many times to say that he was not a fan of the sequels, that he had always disliked New Line Cinema's disrespect for his original story and themes, and when he speaks of Freddy Krueger or the legacy of that series, he is usually only referencing the first film. Freddy was of course dead by the series' 6th film. Freddy's dead. And when talks started for another sequel, they asked Wes Craven to come back for his first time since the first film, technically. Wes didn't want to continue the story of A Nightmare on Elm Street, but 10 years had passed since he had made it, and he had watched Hollywood and cult horror fans and other artists reshape, butcher, and reimagine his work over that time. His new film, his new Nightmare, would then be about that. Wes would tackle the themes of the original film in a meta-narrative context, mainly noting in fear that the Hollywood machine, as well as he himself, may have been responsible for the life they gave to a monster, much like the parents in the original film gave to Freddy himself a decade prior. Wes Craven is my favorite example of an artist who thematically remakes his own work because he has never shied away from talking about an art's ideas or what he was interested in when he was working on a film. The Scream series is very clearly a thematic remake of Wes Craven's New Nightmare as a film series about the idea of art and culture and the way one kind of bastardizes the other. It was clear that Wes was still interested in that topic. When you haven't fully finished a thought, when you've seen your own work from a public perspective over years, a decade or more, and you hope to eventually reclaim your art after seeing it through its misuse, when an idea changes but the feelings about it stay the same, then maybe another piece of art about the same things is the natural next step. And you know, how else could you explain the magical Christmas mix of All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey? I'm ready.